Jake Thompson had experienced many parenting challenges during his 3 years as a single father, but discovering that his 8-year-old daughter had wandered off to investigate what appeared to be a crashed alien spacecraft was definitely a new one. He stood in the doorway of their small apartment above his failing auto repair shop, staring at Emma's empty bed and trying to process the security footage that showed her sneaking out the back door at dawn with her tablet and a thermos of hot chocolate. "Emma," he called, pulling on his work coveralls and grabbing his tool kit with the automatic efficiency of someone who'd learned to prepare for any emergency. "Emma, where are you?" The industrial district behind their building had always been quiet, filled with abandoned warehouses and empty lots that the city had never quite figured out what to do with. But this morning, the area hummed with an energy that made Jake's skin prickle, and the massive metallic object sitting in what used to be an empty parking lot definitely hadn't been there when he'd closed the shop last night. The spacecraft, because what else could he call something that looked like a cross between a luxury yacht and a geometric impossibility, was roughly the size of a city bus but shaped like a crystalline teardrop that seemed to shift colors depending on the viewing angle. Steam rose from various points along its hull, and Jake could hear the distinctive sound of machinery that wasn't quite working correctly. "Daddy!" Emma's voice carried across the lot with the excitement of someone who just discovered that the universe was far more interesting than she'd previously imagined. "Come meet Zara. Her spaceship is broken and she needs help." Jake followed his daughter's voice around the spacecraft's curved hull, mentally cataloging the various ways this situation could go catastrophically wrong while simultaneously noting that the ship's damage patterns looked remarkably similar to what he'd expect from an engine failure in a particularly exotic automobile. He found Emma sitting cross-legged on the ground next to the tallest woman he'd ever seen, though calling her a woman required some adjustment of his definition of the term. She was easily 7 feet tall, with proportions that suggested genetic optimization for both strength and grace, and distinctive pointed ears that marked her as definitely not from Earth. Her clothing appeared to be made from materials that couldn't decide whether they were fabric or liquid metal, and her expression carried the patient resignation of someone whose day had not gone according to plan. "Mr. Thompson, I presume," the alien woman said in accented English that suggested she'd learned the language from very formal sources. "Your daughter has been most helpful in explaining Earth customs and offering moral support during my mechanical difficulties." "She gave me hot chocolate," Emma added helpfully, gesturing to the thermos she'd brought from their apartment. "And she told me her name is Zara and she comes from really far away and her ship's engine is making sad noises." Jake approached cautiously, his mechanical instincts warring with basic self-preservation and parental protective instincts. "Zara, I'm Jake." "Emma, you can't just wander off to talk to strangers, even if they're interesting strangers from space." "But Daddy, she needs help. Her spaceship won't start and she's stuck here until someone fixes it." Emma looked up at him with the expression that meant she'd already decided how this situation should be resolved and was merely waiting for the adults to catch up. Zara stood with fluid grace that suggested her species had been designed by someone with strong opinions about optimal biomechanics. "Mr. Thompson, I apologize for inadvertently involving your daughter in my circumstances. My vessel's quantum drive suffered cascade failure during atmospheric entry, and I require mechanical assistance to effect repairs." Jake looked at the spacecraft, noting scorch marks and crystalline formations that suggested damage from systems that operated on principles he'd never encountered. "I'm just an automotive mechanic. I work on cars and trucks, not, whatever this is." The fundamental principles of mechanical systems remain consistent across technological paradigms, Zara replied with the confidence of someone who'd studied engineering across multiple civilizations. "Your expertise with ground vehicle propulsion systems should translate to quantum drive mechanics with appropriate adaptation." "She showed me pictures of her home on her tablet," Emma said, producing the device she'd brought from their apartment. "It has floating cities and purple oceans and really tall buildings that grow like trees." Jake examined Emma's tablet, which was now displaying three-dimensional holographic images of alien landscapes that looked like someone had reimagined paradise with unlimited technological resources. "How did you connect to our network?" "I adapted your daughter's communication device to interface with my ship's computer," Zara explained. The technological gap is less significant than you might expect. Your species has developed remarkably sophisticated information processing capabilities. Jake looked at his daughter, who was beaming with the pride of someone who just made the most interesting friend in the galaxy, then at the alien woman who seemed genuinely appreciative of Emma's help, and finally at the damaged spacecraft that represented either the greatest opportunity or the greatest disaster of his mechanical career. "All right," he said, setting down his toolkit and trying to ignore the voice in his head that suggested this was probably not his wisest decision. "Let's see what we're working with." Zara led him around the ship's hull to an access panel that had opened to reveal systems that looked like someone had decided to build an engine using crystallized mathematics and pure energy. Jake stared at the complex array of components that pulsed with colors he was reasonably certain didn't exist in normal human experience. "The quantum resonance matrix has destabilized," Zara explained, pointing to a formation that looked like frozen lightning wrapped around a geometric impossibility. "Without proper harmonic alignment, the drive cannot achieve dimensional fold necessary for faster-than-light travel." Jake nodded as if he understood what she just said, while privately wondering how his life had gone from struggling to pay rent to alien technical support in the span of 30 minutes. "Emma, honey, why don't you help by organizing my tools? This is going to take a while." Jake had worked on plenty of vehicles that seemed to defy logical repair, but nothing had prepared him for troubleshooting a propulsion system that operated by convincing spacetime to fold itself into convenient shortcuts. He'd been hunched over Zara's quantum drive for 4 hours, and his back was reminding him that alien engineering apparently didn't account for optimal human working positions. "The harmonic resonance is still off by approximately 0.3 frequency units," Zara observed, monitoring his progress with instruments that displayed data in colors Jake's eyes weren't designed to process. "Though your approach to mechanical problem-solving is remarkably intuitive. It's like tuning a really complicated engine," Jake explained, adjusting what appeared to be a crystalline component using a modified wrench that Emma had helped him wrap with electrical tape for better grip. "You listen to the sounds it makes, feel how the parts move, and try to understand what it wants to do versus what it's actually doing." Emma had appointed herself chief tool organizer and cultural liaison, a role she was taking very seriously despite the fact that her mechanical knowledge was limited to helping Jake change oil in their apartment building's parking lot. "Zara says her people have machines that can fix other machines automatically," Emma announced, handing Jake a socket wrench that somehow fit the alien drive components despite being designed for Earth automobiles. "But she thinks it's more interesting to watch humans figure things out manually." "Your species demonstrates creativity in problem-solving that automated systems cannot replicate," Zara agreed. "You approach mechanical challenges with intuition and improvisation rather than following predetermined protocols." Jake paused in his work to study the quantum drive's layout, noting patterns that reminded him of the fuel injection systems in high-performance sports cars, if sports cars were designed by beings who understood physics as an art form rather than a set of limitations. "Where I come from, you learn to make do with whatever parts you can find," he said, rigging a stabilization system using spare automotive components and alien technology that probably violated several laws of physics. "Half my job is figuring out how to make incompatible systems work together." "And the other half?" Zara asked with what Jake was learning to recognize as genuine curiosity about human engineering philosophy. "Convincing old machines to keep running when they really want to retire." Emma giggled from her position beside Jake's toolkit, where she'd organized his equipment according to size, function, and what she'd decided was how cool they looked next to alien spaceship parts. "Daddy's really good at fixing things," she informed Zara solemnly. "He fixed Mrs. Patterson's car when she couldn't afford to take it to the fancy shop, and he never charges people more than they can pay." Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks as he realized his daughter was inadvertently advertising his inability to run a profitable business to an alien who probably came from a civilization that had solved basic economic problems millennia ago. "Your father operates according to ethical principles that prioritize community welfare over personal profit," Zara observed. "Such approaches to commerce are uncommon in my experience with most civilizations. Most people around here don't have much money," Jake explained, working on what appeared to be the quantum drive's equivalent of a carburetor, if carburetors existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Seemed wrong to make their transportation problems worse just because they couldn't afford premium service. And your own financial circumstances? Jake paused, considering how to explain his situation without sounding like he was asking for sympathy from someone who probably traveled between star systems for entertainment. We get by. Emma's fed, clothed, and educated. The business keeps us housed and mostly solvent. That's more than a lot of people have. Emma looked up from the tablet where she'd been showing Zara pictures of their modest apartment and neighborhood. Daddy says money is just a tool for solving problems, and the best problems to solve are other people's problems. Zara studied Jake with an expression that suggested she was reassessing her initial impressions of human civilization based on his approach to mechanical work and community responsibility. Your quantum resonance alignment is improving, she noted, checking her instruments as Jake's improvised repairs began stabilizing the drive's harmonic patterns. The unconventional stabilization matrix you've constructed is actually more efficient than standard Confederation protocols. Sometimes the weird solution is the right solution, Jake replied, tightening connections that held alien technology together using Earth automotive techniques that definitely weren't in any manual. Especially when you're working with systems that weren't designed to interface with your tools. Or when you're working with systems that were designed by beings who think differently about how machines should behave, Zara added thoughtfully. Jake stepped back to examine his work, noting that the quantum drive now hummed with a harmonious resonance that sounded like crystalline music rather than the discordant grinding it had produced when he'd started. The repair had taken all night, but the sense of satisfaction was similar to what he felt when he'd successfully revived a classic car that everyone else had written off as scrap. Test it, he suggested, wiping his hands on a rag that Emma had provided from their household supply of clean shop towels. Zara activated the drive's diagnostic systems, and Jake watched as the entire engine array came to life with patterns of light and energy that painted the early morning air with colors that probably didn't have names in any human language. Successful activation, Zara announced, though her tone carried surprise that suggested she hadn't been entirely certain Jake's unconventional approach would work. Drive efficiency is actually 12% higher than standard operational parameters. 12%. Jake asked, not entirely sure what that meant for alien spacecraft but recognizing the satisfaction in Zara's voice. Your modifications have improved my ship's performance beyond factory specifications, she explained. This level of enhancement typically requires specialized engineering facilities and considerable expense. Emma clapped her hands with delight. Daddy made your spaceship better than new. Jake looked at the quantum drive that now operated with the smooth efficiency of a perfectly tuned engine, then at his daughter who was beaming with pride, and finally at the alien woman who seemed genuinely impressed by his improvised mechanical solution. Just doing what I can to help, he said, beginning to pack up his tools while trying not to think about how he was going to explain this to anyone who asked why he'd been up all night working in an abandoned parking lot. The successful repair of Zara's quantum drive should have been the end of their encounter, but Emma had apparently decided that having an alien friend was too interesting an opportunity to waste on a single morning's adventure. She'd convinced Zara to stay for breakfast, which meant Jake found himself trying to prepare pancakes for someone whose dietary requirements were a complete mystery. Your food preparation techniques are remarkably similar to basic nutritional synthesis, Zara observed, watching Jake work at their small apartment's kitchen with the fascination of someone studying an exotic cultural practice. Though your approach involves considerably more direct manipulation of raw materials. We call it cooking, Emma explained helpfully, setting the table with their mismatched plates and the good silverware that Jake usually reserved for special occasions. Daddy makes really good pancakes, and we have syrup that tastes like trees. Trees? Maple syrup comes from maple trees, Jake clarified, flipping pancakes that were turning out better than usual, possibly because he was trying to make a good impression on their otherworldly guest. It's a traditional human breakfast sweetener with a distinctive flavor profile. Zara examined the syrup bottle with scientific interest, reading the label with the thoroughness of someone conducting xenobiological research. Concentrated plant essence used for flavor enhancement. Your species has developed sophisticated techniques for extracting and concentrating natural compounds for culinary purposes. You make pancakes sound like chemistry, Emma giggled, pouring syrup in patterns that turned her breakfast into abstract art. All cooking is chemistry, Jake pointed out, serving Zara a stack of pancakes that he hoped wouldn't violate any alien dietary restrictions. We just don't usually think about it that way. Zara approached the meal with cautious scientific curiosity, taking small experimental bites while monitoring what Jake assumed were internal biological sensors for adverse reactions. Her expression of genuine surprise and pleasure when she tasted the maple syrup was worth the slight anxiety he'd felt about potentially poisoning an interstellar visitor. "This is remarkably pleasant," she announced. "The flavor complexity is far more sophisticated than standard nutritional supplements. Your species has developed food preparation into an art form." "Wait until you try ice cream," Emma said with the authority of someone who considered herself an expert on Earth's finest culinary achievements. After breakfast, Emma insisted on giving Zara a tour of their neighborhood, which meant Jake found himself playing tour guide to an alien who was probably accustomed to visiting planets that made Earth look like a remote outpost. They walked through the modest residential area surrounding his repair shop, with Emma providing enthusiastic commentary on local landmarks and cultural practices. "That's Mrs. Patterson's house," Emma pointed out, gesturing toward a small home with a carefully maintained garden. "She brings us cookies when Daddy fixes her car for free because she can't afford to pay right away." "And the building with the colorful murals?" Zara asked, studying the community center that local artists had decorated with scenes depicting the neighborhood's history and residents. "That's where I go after school when Daddy's working late," Emma explained. "They have art classes and homework help and sometimes movie nights with popcorn." Jake watched Zara observe their community with the attention of someone conducting an anthropological study, noting her particular interest in the informal support networks and cooperative relationships that helped residents manage economic challenges. "Your neighborhood operates on principles of mutual assistance and resource sharing," Zara observed as they walked past Jake's repair shop, where several customers were waiting despite the fact that he put up a sign explaining he'd be unavailable until afternoon. "Small communities work better when people help each other," Jake replied, waving to his waiting customers and feeling guilty about keeping them waiting while entertaining an alien tourist. "Everyone has different skills and resources, so it makes sense to share when you can. And when you can't, then people understand and help you figure out alternatives." Emma tugged on Zara's sleeve, which required her to bend down considerably given the height difference. "Daddy says the best way to have good neighbors is to be a good neighbor first." Zara studied Jake with an expression that suggested she was filing away information about human social philosophy for future reference. "Your approach to community relationships prioritizes long-term cooperation over short-term individual advantage." "It's not really philosophy," Jake said, feeling slightly uncomfortable with the analysis. "It's just how decent people treat each other." They were interrupted by the arrival of City Code Enforcement Officer Dave Williams, whose presence usually meant someone had complained about noise, property maintenance, or unlicensed business activities. Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized that a massive alien spacecraft parked behind his shop might qualify as a zoning violation. "Jake, we've been getting reports about unusual energy readings in this area," Dave announced, studying his scanner with the expression of someone whose morning had become unexpectedly complicated. "The readings are off the charts, but we can't pinpoint the source." Jake glanced at Zara, who had somehow managed to position herself behind a parked car in a way that made her 7-foot frame nearly invisible to casual observation. Emma, however, was bouncing with excitement at the prospect of sharing their morning's adventure. "We met an alien," she announced before Jake could stop her. "Her name is Zara and she has a spaceship that was broken but Daddy fixed it." Dave looked from Emma to Jake with the patient expression of someone accustomed to 8-year-olds' creative storytelling. "An alien spaceship, huh? That would definitely explain the energy readings." "Emma has a very active imagination," Jake said quickly, hoping Dave would dismiss the story as childhood fantasy rather than investigating further. "Active enough to imagine energy signatures that are showing up on city monitoring equipment," Dave replied dryly. Though I suppose if there really was a spaceship around here, whoever owns it would probably want to avoid attracting official attention. Jake realized that Dave was giving him an opportunity to resolve the situation quietly rather than filing formal reports that would bring additional scrutiny. Hypothetically speaking, if someone were visiting the area with unusual transportation, they'd probably appreciate discretion. Hypothetically speaking, as long as there are no safety violations or property damage, the city doesn't need to investigate every anomalous reading, Dave agreed. Though such visitors might want to complete their business and move along before more persistent officials start asking questions. Emma looked disappointed that Dave wasn't more excited about meeting an alien, but Jake felt relief that their situation wasn't about to become a federal investigation. Zara had been staying in their neighborhood for 3 days, and Jake was beginning to worry that his alien guest was in no hurry to continue her journey, which could become problematic if more persistent authorities started investigating the energy readings that her ship was apparently broadcasting across the entire metropolitan area. "You mentioned you were on some kind of diplomatic mission," Jake said, watching Zara help Emma with her science homework in ways that would probably give her an unfair advantage over classmates who didn't have access to advanced alien tutoring. "Don't your people expect you to arrive somewhere on schedule?" "My family is accustomed to my independent approach to travel," Zara replied carefully, her tone suggesting that family expectations were a more complicated subject than Jake had initially assumed. "They understand that meaningful diplomatic work requires thorough cultural observation." Emma looked up from the tablet where Zara had been showing her three-dimensional models of stellar formation. "Is your family worried about you being gone?" "My family has extensive resources for monitoring my welfare," Zara assured her. "Though they may have opinions about the length of my current cultural study period." Jake was beginning to sense that Zara's family might be more significant than she'd initially indicated, based on her casual references to diplomatic missions and extensive resources. He'd initially assumed she meant her people were well off by alien standards, but her comments suggested influence and capabilities that went beyond simple prosperity. "What kind of diplomatic work do you do?" he asked, genuinely curious about the political structures of interstellar civilization. "I observe how different societies organize themselves, particularly their approaches to resource distribution and social cooperation," Zara explained, helping Emma understand concepts about planetary formation that were probably above graduate-level human astrophysics. "Your community's economic and social relationships represent interesting variations on standard galactic patterns." "Interesting how?" "Most advanced civilizations develop post-scarcity economics that eliminate resource competition. Your society still operates under scarcity conditions, yet maintains cooperative social structures that many post-scarcity civilizations have lost." Jake realized that Zara was studying their neighborhood like an anthropologist examining a unique cultural specimen. "You're saying we're interesting because we're poor but still decent to each other?" "I'm saying you're interesting because you've maintained community solidarity despite economic pressures that typically destroy social cooperation in developing civilizations." Emma finished her homework with alien assistance and moved on to showing Zara her collection of drawings and craft projects, which the alien woman examined with the kind of serious attention usually reserved for important cultural artifacts. "Your daughter demonstrates remarkable creativity and social intelligence," Zara observed, studying Emma's artwork with genuine appreciation. "These qualities are highly valued in advanced civilizations." "She's definitely the smart one in the family," Jake agreed, watching Emma explain her artistic techniques to someone whose people probably had art forms that existed in dimensions he couldn't perceive. "Intelligence and creativity are inherited traits that manifest differently in various environmental conditions," Zara noted. Emma's capabilities suggest significant potential for advanced education and cultural development. Jake felt a familiar pang of guilt about the limitations of what he could provide for his daughter. Emma was brilliant, curious, and eager to learn, but his financial situation meant that opportunities for advanced education or cultural enrichment were mostly limited to whatever free programs the community center could offer. "I do my best to support her interests," he said, hoping Zara wouldn't notice the defensive tone that crept into his voice when he thought about his inadequacies as a provider. "Your approach to parenting prioritizes emotional support and character development over material advancement," Zara observed. Such priorities often produce more resilient and adaptable individuals than resource-abundant but emotionally deficient environments. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Jake's landlord, Mr. Peterson, whose presence usually meant either routine building maintenance or discussions about overdue rent. Based on his expression, Jake suspected this visit fell into the second category. "Jake, we need to talk about the rent situation," Peterson announced without preamble, studying the financial records he'd brought along. "You're 3 months behind, and my patience is running out." Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized Zara was about to witness his personal financial crisis, which would probably confirm whatever assumptions she'd made about the limitations of primitive human economic systems. "I know, Mr. Peterson. Business has been slow, but I've got several jobs lined up that should help me catch up over the next few weeks." "That's what you said last month," Peterson replied. "Look, Jake, I like you and Emma, and I know you're trying hard. But I've got my own bills to pay, and I can't carry tenants indefinitely." Emma looked up from her drawings with the expression of someone who was beginning to understand that the adult conversation was about something serious and potentially threatening to her security. "How much time do we have?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm for Emma's sake while calculating whether his current job prospects could realistically address their financial situation before eviction became inevitable. 2 weeks, Peterson said. "After that, I'll have to start formal eviction proceedings." Jake nodded, accepting the timeline while privately wondering where he and Emma would live if his business couldn't generate enough income to cover basic housing costs in the next 14 days. "I understand," he said simply, choosing not to make promises he might not be able to keep. After Peterson left, Jake noticed that Zara had been listening to the entire conversation with the focused attention of someone taking notes for a research project. Emma had returned to her drawings, but Jake could see the worry in her expression as she processed the implications of potentially losing their home. "Financial stress represents a significant challenge for your family unit," Zara observed with the diplomatic neutrality of someone trained to discuss sensitive topics without offering judgment. "It's temporary," Jake replied, hoping that confidence in his voice would convince Emma if not himself. "I've dealt with tough times before." "Your approach to adversity demonstrates resilience and determination that are admirable qualities," Zara said. "Such characteristics often lead to eventual success, though the timeline can be challenging." Jake appreciated her attempt at encouragement, even though he suspected her people had probably solved basic economic problems so long ago that they barely remembered what financial insecurity felt like. Zara's ship had been receiving increasingly urgent communications for the past 2 days, messages that arrived as cascades of harmonic frequencies that made Jake's tools vibrate sympathetically in their cases. She'd been diplomatically vague about the nature of these communications, but Jake suspected that whoever was trying to reach her was becoming impatient with her extended cultural study period. "Family obligations require my departure within the next standard cycle," Zara announced over breakfast, though her tone suggested she was not particularly enthusiastic about resuming whatever responsibilities awaited her return. "My continued absence is apparently causing administrative complications that require immediate attention." Emma looked up from her pancakes with the expression of someone whose world was about to become significantly less interesting. "Do you have to go? Can't you tell your family that you're still studying Earth customs?" "My family's patience with independent research has certain limitations," Zara replied carefully. "Particularly when that research involves extended interaction with developing civilizations without proper diplomatic protocols." Jake sensed that there were layers to this conversation that Zara wasn't sharing, but he'd learned enough about alien cultural norms to understand that her family probably had legitimate concerns about unauthorized contact with primitive species like humanity. "We understand," he assured her, trying to hide his own disappointment at losing someone who'd brought so much wonder and learning into their modest life. "You've already been more generous with your time than we had any right to expect. Your hospitality and friendship have provided valuable insights that will benefit my people's understanding of human civilization," Zara said formally, though Jake detected genuine warmth beneath the diplomatic language. "This cultural exchange has been personally meaningful." Over the next few hours, Zara prepared her ship for departure while Emma helped with pre-flight procedures that probably qualified as advanced aerospace engineering education. Jake watched from a distance, noting that the alien woman seemed reluctant to finalize preparations for her journey. "Before I leave," Zara said, approaching Jake with what appeared to be several pieces of sophisticated equipment, "I want to provide compensation for your mechanical services. These are standard diagnostic and repair tools that should enhance your ability to service various types of vehicles." Jake examined the devices, which looked like someone had redesigned automotive diagnostic equipment using principles that made conventional technology seem like stone tools. The scanning capabilities alone would revolutionize his ability to identify and repair mechanical problems across a wide range of vehicle types. "This is too much," he protested, though he couldn't help but imagine how dramatically the advanced equipment would improve his repair capabilities and business prospects. "I helped because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected payment. Among my people, refusing to provide appropriate compensation for valuable services is considered insulting," Zara explained. "These tools represent standard payment for mechanical consulting in interstellar commerce." Jake accepted the equipment reluctantly, not understanding that he was receiving diagnostic technology that could revolutionize Earth's automotive industry and put his repair shop decades ahead of any competition. "Just promise you'll use them to help your community," Zara added. "Your approach to mechanical problem-solving combined with these tools could benefit many people." Emma presented Zara with a hand-drawn picture that depicted the three of them standing next to the alien spacecraft, with Jake holding tools and Zara surrounded by stars and planets. The artwork captured the essence of their friendship with the straightforward honesty that only children could achieve. "This is a precious gift," Zara said, studying the drawing with an expression that suggested genuine emotional response. "I will treasure this representation of our friendship. Will you come back and visit us?" Emma asked, her voice carrying the hope of someone who discovered that the universe contained wonders beyond her previous imagination. "If circumstances permit, I would very much like to maintain contact with your family," Zara replied. "Though such visits may require proper authorization from relevant authorities." Jake walked around the ship one final time, checking his repair work and marveling at technology that operated on principles he was only beginning to understand. The quantum drive hummed with perfect harmonic resonance, and he felt the satisfaction of work well done despite the unconventional nature of the project. "Your modifications continue to exceed standard performance parameters," Zara reported, running final diagnostics on systems that painted the morning air with impossible colors. "The efficiency improvements you achieved will be noted in my technical reports." Technical reports. Standard documentation for any significant technological innovations encountered during diplomatic missions, Zara explained. "Your repair techniques represent unique approaches that could benefit interstellar mechanical maintenance protocols." Jake nodded, not fully understanding the implications of having his improvisational repair methods documented by an apparently advanced civilization. As Zara prepared for final departure, Jake noticed her accessing communication systems that seemed to be conducting conversations in languages that existed as mathematical harmonics rather than spoken words. Her responses suggested formal reporting procedures and requests for authorization that were being processed through multiple levels of bureaucratic hierarchy. "Zara," he said finally, sensing that there were important things she hadn't told them about her background and circumstances, "exactly who are you reporting to when you get home?" She paused in her pre-flight procedures, studying Jake and Emma with an expression that suggested she was debating how much truth to reveal about her actual identity and circumstances. "My family holds certain administrative responsibilities within our civilization's governance structure," she said carefully. "My observations about human society will influence future diplomatic policies regarding Earth's development and integration into galactic civilization." Administrative responsibilities. "Jake, my full name is Princess Zara Crystalline of the Andromedan Trade Federation," she said quietly. "My family controls commercial and diplomatic relationships across approximately 2,000 star systems." Jake stared at her, processing the revelation that his daughter had been befriending galactic royalty while he'd been treating their visitor like any other stranded traveler in need of mechanical assistance. You're a princess, Emma said with the matter-of-fact acceptance of someone whose universe had already expanded beyond normal parameters. That's why you know so much about different planets and why your family has lots of resources. That's why your family expects you to follow diplomatic protocols, Jake added, understanding finally why Zara's extended stay on Earth had been causing administrative complications. 3 months after Princess Zara's departure, Jake's life had transformed in ways that defied logical explanation, though he was beginning to suspect that her influence extended far beyond the advanced diagnostic equipment she'd left behind. His auto repair business was experiencing an unprecedented surge of customers, many of whom seemed to have very specific requirements for his particular mechanical expertise. "Mr. Thompson, I represent the Interstellar Logistics Corporation," announced the well-dressed woman who'd arrived that morning in a vehicle that looked suspiciously advanced for Earth automotive technology. "We've heard remarkable things about your ability to repair complex propulsion systems using unconventional techniques." Jake looked up from the engine he'd been diagnosing with Zara's equipment, which continued to provide readings that revealed mechanical problems he'd never been able to detect with conventional tools. "Interstellar Logistics. We handle transportation and maintenance contracts for various, off-world clients," she explained diplomatically. "Clients who specifically requested your services based on technical reports that documented your innovative repair methodologies." Technical reports. "Apparently, your work on a damaged quantum drive system has earned you quite a reputation in certain circles. We'd like to offer you a consulting contract that could be very lucrative for your business." Emma looked up from her homework, which had become significantly more advanced since Zara's tutoring had sparked her interest in astrophysics and galactic civilizations. "Daddy, are those the space people Zara talked about?" The woman smiled at Emma's directness. "Your daughter seems remarkably well informed about interstellar commerce for someone her age." Jake accepted the contract documents, noting payment rates that seemed impossibly generous for the kind of mechanical work he'd been doing his entire career. "This compensation seems excessive for automotive repair. Mr. Thompson, the clients we represent consider your services extremely valuable. Quantum drive maintenance specialists are rare, and individuals who can improve drive efficiency using innovative techniques are practically unique." Over the following weeks, Jake found himself working on vehicles and equipment that definitely weren't manufactured on Earth, though his clients maintained careful fiction that everything was experimental prototype technology being tested for future commercial development. The work was challenging and fascinating, requiring creative applications of mechanical principles to systems that operated on physics he was still learning to understand. "Daddy's fixing spaceships again," Emma announced to her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, during a parent conference that Jake had been dreading since receiving notice that Emma's science projects were unusually sophisticated for a third-grade student. "Emma has been telling remarkable stories about advanced technology and alien friends," Mrs. Rodriguez said diplomatically. "Her recent project about interstellar propulsion systems demonstrated understanding of concepts that aren't typically covered until graduate-level physics." Jake struggled to explain his daughter's sudden advancement in scientific knowledge without revealing that she'd been tutored by galactic royalty. "She's been reading a lot of science fiction lately. Very detailed science fiction. Science fiction that includes accurate mathematical descriptions of quantum mechanics and stellar navigation. She has a very good imagination." Emma received a personal message from Princess Zara through communication channels that Jake was reasonably certain didn't exist according to Earth's current understanding of information technology. The message arrived as a holographic projection that materialized in their living room during dinner, causing Jake to choke on his spaghetti. "Greetings, dear friends," Princess Zara's image said with the warm formality of someone conducting official diplomatic correspondence. "I hope this message finds you both healthy and prosperous. I wanted to inform you that my cultural observations about Earth's social and economic structures have been well received by the Andromedan Trade Federation's Diplomatic Council." "She looks even more fancy than before," Emma observed, noting that Zara now wore clothing that seemed to incorporate precious metals and crystalline elements in patterns that suggested high-ranking official status. "My recommendations regarding Earth's readiness for increased interstellar contact have been approved," Zara continued. This means that limited commercial and cultural exchange programs will be established, beginning with individuals who have demonstrated exceptional capabilities and ethical standards. Jake realized that his recent business success was probably connected to these limited commercial programs that Zara had somehow arranged through proper diplomatic channels. I also wanted to inform you that Emma's educational assessment scores have been noted by our academic institutions, Zara added. Should your family be interested in advanced educational opportunities, arrangements could be made for Emma to participate in exchange programs with some of the galaxy's finest learning institutions. Emma bounced with excitement at the prospect of studying with alien students on distant planets, while Jake felt simultaneous pride in his daughter's capabilities and anxiety about opportunities that could take her far beyond his ability to provide or protect. Finally, Zara's message concluded, I want you to know that your friendship and kindness have influenced my approach to diplomatic relations throughout the Trade Federation. Your example has reminded me that the most valuable connections between civilizations are built through personal relationships and mutual respect rather than formal protocols. The message ended with Princess Zara promising to maintain contact and expressing hope for future visits, pending approval from both Earth authorities and Andromedan diplomatic protocols. She wants to help me go to space school, Emma said with the matter-of-fact excitement of someone whose universe contained infinite possibilities for adventure and learning. She wants to help our family access opportunities that we never could have imagined, Jake corrected, though he was beginning to understand that his simple act of helping a stranded traveler had somehow connected them to resources and possibilities that could transform their entire future. Does this mean we don't have to worry about rent anymore? Emma asked with the practical concerns of someone who'd overheard enough adult conversations to understand their family's financial challenges. Jake looked around their modest apartment, then at the communication device that had just delivered a personal message from galactic royalty, and finally at his daughter who was already dreaming about educational opportunities among the stars. I think, he said carefully, our circumstances are about to change in ways we're still figuring out. The diplomatic vessel that arrived 6 months later was approximately the size of a city block and shaped like a crystalline cathedral that had learned to fly, which Jake felt was probably appropriate transportation for someone whose previous visit had involved crash landing in an abandoned parking lot. The ship's arrival had been preceded by formal notifications from Earth's government about first official interstellar diplomatic contact, though Jake suspected the bureaucrats had no idea that their distinguished alien visitor was someone he'd already met. That's definitely Zara's ship, Emma announced, watching the massive vessel settle onto the landing field that had been hastily constructed outside the city. It's much bigger than her last one, but it has the same kind of pretty lights. Jake agreed, noting that the diplomatic ship incorporated the same crystalline aesthetic and harmonic energy patterns as the damaged vessel he repaired, though scaled up to accommodate what appeared to be a substantial official delegation. Mr. Thompson, your presence has been specifically requested for the formal reception ceremony, announced the government liaison who'd been assigned to coordinate Jake's participation in what everyone was calling humanity's first interstellar diplomatic meeting. My presence? Princess Zara Crystalline of the Andromedan Trade Federation has indicated that you and your daughter are personal friends whose attendance would be diplomatically significant. Emma had spent the past week preparing for Zara's return by creating a new artistic portfolio and practicing the alien language phrases that their friend had taught her during her previous visit. She was practically vibrating with excitement about the prospect of introducing her father to galactic royalty in an official capacity. The reception ceremony took place in a temporary pavilion that had been constructed specifically for the occasion, with human officials and media representatives trying to manage protocols for a situation that had no precedent in Earth's diplomatic history. Jake felt distinctly out of place among the formal suits and official procedures, though Emma seemed perfectly comfortable with the pageantry. Princess Zara emerged from her ship wearing ceremonial robes that incorporated living crystalline elements and patterns that seemed to shift between dimensions, accompanied by a delegation that represented various aspects of Andromedan civilization. But despite the formal trappings of her royal status, her smile when she spotted Jake and Emma was warm and genuine. Jake, Emma, I'm so pleased to see you again, she said, approaching them with the kind of personal attention that caused government officials to scramble to understand the significance of two ordinary citizens being greeted by name by galactic royalty. You look very official, Emma observed, studying Princess Zara's formal regalia with artistic appreciation. But you still have the same nice smile. Diplomatic responsibilities require certain ceremonial presentations, Princess Zara explained. Though I'm much more comfortable with informal interactions among friends. Jake found himself participating in what he was reasonably certain was the most important conversation in human history, as Princess Zara formally presented the Andromedan Trade Federation's proposals for cultural and commercial exchange with Earth's civilization. Based on my cultural observations and the demonstrated capabilities of Earth's population, Princess Zara announced to the assembled officials, the Trade Federation is prepared to offer limited partnership agreements that could benefit both our civilizations. What kind of partnerships? Asked the Secretary of State, who'd been trying to develop diplomatic protocols for a situation that didn't exist in any government manual. Educational exchange programs, technological consultation services, and commercial relationships that respect Earth's developmental autonomy while providing access to galactic markets and resources. Jake listened as Princess Zara outlined opportunities that could advance human civilization by centuries while maintaining Earth's independence and cultural integrity. The proposals were careful, gradual, and designed to avoid the social disruption that could result from too rapid technological advancement. We're also prepared to offer specific opportunities to individuals who have demonstrated exceptional capabilities and ethical standards, Princess Zara continued, looking directly at Jake and Emma. Beginning with positions in our interstellar maintenance and cultural liaison divisions. Positions? Jake asked, though he was beginning to understand where this conversation was leading. The Andromedan fleet requires Chief Mechanical Advisor for Quantum Drive Systems, Princess Zara explained. Someone with innovative problem-solving capabilities and experience adapting standard techniques to unique technological challenges. You're offering me a job. I'm offering your family the opportunity to participate in interstellar civilization as valued contributors rather than junior partners. Your mechanical innovations have applications throughout our transportation network, and Emma's educational potential could be fully developed through our academic institutions. Emma grabbed Jake's hand with excitement that was barely contained. Daddy, she wants us to live in space and fix spaceships and study alien science. Jake looked at his daughter, whose entire future was being transformed by opportunities he could never have provided, then at Princess Zara, whose friendship had evolved from a chance encounter into a doorway to possibilities beyond his imagination. The position includes residence on our primary trade station, advanced educational facilities for Emma, and compensation that would address any concerns about financial security, Princess Zara added diplomatically. How much compensation? Jake asked, though he suspected the answer would be irrelevant compared to the opportunities being offered. Sufficient to make you one of the wealthiest individuals in human space, she replied simply. Though the position's value extends far beyond monetary considerations. Jake realized that his simple decision to help a stranded traveler had connected his family to resources and opportunities that could transform not just their lives, but potentially humanity's entire relationship with galactic civilization. There's one condition, Princess Zara added. You would need to relocate to our capital station within the next standard cycle to begin training and integration procedures. Leave Earth? To become Earth's first representatives in interstellar civilization, she clarified. Your family would serve as cultural liaisons, helping other humans understand what participation in galactic society involves. Emma looked up at Jake with expression that conveyed complete confidence in his ability to make the right decision about their extraordinary future. Princess Zara, Jake said formally, on behalf of my family, I accept your generous offer. 2 years after relocating to the Andromedan Trade Federation's capital station, Jake stood in what had become the most advanced mechanical facility in known space, watching human and alien engineers collaborate on propulsion systems that incorporated his unconventional repair techniques into standard galactic technology. The transformation of both his career and his understanding of the universe still amazed him daily. The Thompson efficiency protocols have been adopted across 43 star systems, reported Chief Engineer Kes Voidwright, reviewing performance data that showed Jake's mechanical innovations had revolutionized interstellar transportation efficiency. Drive system performance has improved by an average of 18%, while maintenance requirements have decreased significantly. I still can't believe that jury-rigging alien technology with automotive tools has become an official engineering methodology, Jake replied, studying holographic displays that showed his repair techniques being taught at technical academies throughout the Trade Federation. Unconventional problem-solving approaches often produce superior solutions to standardized protocols, Princess Zara observed, joining them in the facility that had become the center for human-Andromedan technological collaboration. Your contributions have validated the Federation's decision to prioritize diversity in engineering approaches. Emma, now 10 years old and fluent in 12 galactic languages, bounded into the workshop with the enthusiasm of someone whose education included everything from quantum physics to interstellar diplomacy. Her academic achievements at the galaxy's most prestigious institutions had exceeded even Princess Zara's optimistic projections. Daddy, Professor Crystalline says my thesis on dimensional engineering applications is ready for publication in the Academy's scientific journal, she announced, carrying research that would probably advance human understanding of physics by several decades. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Jake said, marveling at his daughter's casual mastery of concepts that had been completely beyond human knowledge just a few years earlier. Are you still planning to present it at the Interstellar Student Conference next month? Yes, and Zara said she'll help me prepare for questions from the panel of experts. Emma had maintained her friendship with Princess Zara despite the complexity of their new circumstances, though their relationship had evolved to include mentorship in galactic politics and diplomacy. Princess Zara smiled at Emma's excitement, her expression carrying the warmth of someone who'd watched a brilliant child flourish beyond all expectations. Emma's work on dimensional engineering represents innovations that could benefit transportation systems throughout the galaxy. Jake reflected on how his family's circumstances had transformed from struggling to pay rent to contributing breakthrough innovations to galactic civilization. The financial security was wonderful, but more important was the sense of purpose and belonging that came from meaningful work that helped entire civilizations. The latest reports from Earth show that the technology transfer programs are proceeding ahead of schedule, Princess Zara continued, reviewing diplomatic communications that arrived through quantum networks spanning thousands of star systems. Human engineers trained in our facilities are returning to Earth with knowledge that's accelerating your planet's technological development. Any signs of social disruption from the rapid advancement? Jake asked, concerned about the cultural impact of introducing advanced technology to human civilization. Less than anticipated. Earth's population has adapted to technological change with remarkable flexibility and creativity. Princess Zara displayed progress reports that showed human society successfully integrating advanced capabilities while maintaining cultural integrity. Your planet's approach to technological adoption has become a model for other developing civilizations. The Thomson Foundation, established by the Andromedan royal family in recognition of Jake's contributions to interstellar civilization, had become one of the galaxy's most influential educational and cultural exchange programs. The foundation provided opportunities for promising individuals from developing civilizations to access advanced education and training throughout the Trade Federation. This month's foundation graduates include representatives from 18 different species, Emma reported, reviewing data about students who'd benefited from programs inspired by her family's story. They're returning to their home worlds with knowledge that could transform entire civilizations. Jake watched holographic displays showing Foundation graduates establishing educational institutions, developing sustainable technologies, and creating cultural bridges between their home worlds and galactic civilization. The impact of their simple act of kindness toward a stranded traveler had rippled across multiple star systems. Princess Zara, Jake said formally, using the address they maintained for official occasions despite their personal friendship, when you first crashed in our parking lot, did you know this would happen? I knew that helping someone in need was the right thing to do, she replied with a smile that reminded Jake of their first breakfast together in his modest apartment. I suspected that kindness and competence were qualities that would be valued in galactic civilization. But I had no idea that your family would become such influential contributors to interstellar society. Emma approached Princess Zara with a tablet containing her latest artistic project, a holographic sculpture that depicted the progression from their first meeting to their current roles in galactic civilization. The artwork captured the essence of how simple human decency had created connections that transformed multiple worlds. "This represents our friendship and how it changed everything," Emma explained, activating the sculpture's temporal display that showed their story unfolding across time and space. From fixing a broken spaceship to fixing relationships between entire civilizations. Princess Zara studied the artwork with the appreciation of someone whose royal education had included extensive training in cultural analysis and artistic interpretation. "Emma, this piece perfectly captures how individual relationships can influence entire civilizations. Your artistic vision has matured remarkably." Jake looked around the advanced facility where humans and aliens worked together on projects that benefited billions of beings across the galaxy, then at his daughter who was casually conversing with galactic royalty about art and diplomacy, and finally at Princess Zara whose friendship had opened doorways to possibilities he could never have imagined. "When I was working on your ship that first night," he said to Princess Zara, "I never thought I was starting a career in interstellar diplomacy." "When I crashed in your parking lot," she replied, "I never thought I was beginning the most important friendship of my life." Emma looked up from her tablet where she'd been sketching plans for her next artistic project, a piece that would celebrate the cultural connections between Earth and the Andromedan Trade Federation. "Daddy, do you think other people will have adventures like ours?" Jake considered the Foundation programs that were providing opportunities for thousands of individuals to contribute to galactic civilization, the technology transfer initiatives that were transforming entire worlds, and the cultural exchange projects that were building understanding between species. "I think, sweetheart, that our adventure is just the beginning. There are probably lots of people throughout the galaxy who just need someone to believe in their potential and give them a chance to contribute something meaningful." Princess Zara nodded in agreement, her expression carrying the satisfaction of someone whose life's work involved creating opportunities for such transformative connections. "Jake, your family has proven that the most valuable relationships in galactic civilization are built through kindness, competence, and mutual respect rather than wealth or status. That lesson is being taught throughout the Trade Federation." As Jake watched Emma return to her studies and Princess Zara coordinate diplomatic communications with distant star systems, he reflected that the most important moment in his life had been deciding to help a stranger in need. That simple choice had led to friendships that spanned the galaxy and opportunities that transformed not just his family's circumstances, but the relationship between entire civilizations. The universe, it turned out, rewarded kindness in ways that exceeded imagination.